What's up, everybody? It's your girl, La Fille Roos. Sydney if you're nasty, or just trying to be polite and use my first name. You know, as we all do. So yeah, it is Friday, and when it's Friday, we're feeling fine, right, guys? Am I right, guys? Nobody's good. Okay. I am coming at you today with no makeup, my Unis Honest hoodie, and we're just gonna have a ball. You know, we're just gonna have a fun time today. And how we have a fun time on this channel is apparently we talk about true crime. I don't know when that happened. Last week's Feelin Fine Friday, which I will link up here, I talked about the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, which was all about catching Richard Ramirez and his crimes, and a lot of it was from the perspective of the detectives. And I mentioned briefly in that video that Richard Ramirez was actually known for staying at the Cecil Hotel, which has a very dark and candid history. And I should make a video on the Netflix docuseries Crime Scene Disappearance at the Cecil Hotel. I said that I might make a Feelin Fine Friday video on that. And frankly, I'm going to do that because I kind of have some thoughts and feelings on that show. Crime Scene, The Disappearance at the Cecil Hotel actually centers around the disappearance of ELISA LAMM, who disappeared from the Cecil Hotel. She was visiting LA. She was a Canadian resident, and she was visiting LA and decided to stay at the Cecil because the Cecil Hotel was very cheap. And then she suddenly just disappeared, only to be found in the water tank on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. There was a lot of confusion surrounding her death. There was a lot of questions surrounding her death. And it became a very big topic of conversation. This show covers a lot of ground when it comes to not just the disappearance of ELISA LAMM, but the Cecil Hotel as a whole. But the Cecil Hotel was built in the 1920s, and it was a beautiful hotel that was, you know, thought of to be a nice place to stay if you're in downtown LA. And then when the Depression hit, the Cecil Hotel kind of, you know, it took a hit because people weren't traveling and they certainly weren't spending their money on hotels. When LA kind of developed this Skid Row area, which is a hotbed of criminal activity and unfortunately mental illness, but that all happened around the Cecil Hotel. So when people needed a place to stay and they had a couple extra dollars, if you were from Skid Row, you went to stay at the Cecil. So then the Cecil became this hotbed of criminal activity, and not very good things were happening there. To make matters worse, it became this center of very negative attention when ELISA LAMM disappeared. It was even worse when she was found, and the way she was found is very sad because not only did she die in a water tank on the rooftop, but they didn't find her body until days later because residents were complaining that the water was very dark and had a very gross taste to it. So they were literally drinking the water that her body was decaying in. That to me is just really, really sad in a whole messed up way. So when she disappeared, there were all kinds of questions and concerns, and even conspiracy theories as to what happened to ELISA LAMM. The biggest thing that people thought was that she was murdered, right? The biggest thing was something happened. And when the crime scene, or when the footage of her acting very strangely in an elevator became public, people started speculating a lot of different things were going on. She looked like she was talking to somebody else. She was moving her hands in a very weird way. When you first see her hop into the elevator, it almost looks like she's trying to hide from somebody. Like she's like putting herself into different corners and then peeking out and then putting herself back into the corner and then peeking back out. Like she looks like she thinks she's being chased by somebody and is hiding in this elevator. So it was just very weird and erratic behavior, and people were very concerned that something had happened to her and that somebody was chasing her, and that's why she was acting the way that she was. There were some conspiracy theories that something happened to her and the hotel was trying to cover it up, or that something happened to her and the police were trying to cover it up. And this show very much follows the don't F with cats scenario of internet sleuths. In this show, they it's a lot of the negative that they cover on internet sleuthing, because basically it almost, with the ELISA LAMM case, it almost became invasive to an extent. People just coming up with different theories as to what happened to her. And one of the, in my personal opinion, one of the sadder parts was they interviewed a Mexican musician who was essentially framed by people on the internet, or not framed, but accused by people on the internet of being responsible for ELISA LAMM's death, because he had written lyrics that were edgy. While, listen, the guy was an edgelord, right? I'll say that. But if you ask me, there was nothing that indicated in any way, shape, or form that he murdered ELISA LAMM. He stayed at the CECIL Hotel one time, and when he was there, wasn't even around the same time that ELISA LAMM was there. So there really is no indication other than him singing about dark, disturbing things in his music. Other than that, there's really no kind of indication that he would be capable of something like that. I mean, the poor guy had his life ruined. He was talking about how he just has no desire to make music anymore because he's so depressed about what happened to him, and his name is forever tied to this horrible, horrible thing. A lot of questions that were raised by the circumstances of her death that made people very suspicious were things like, it was reported initially that the door to the water tank she was found in was closed. Right? And people were saying, well, if she, fell, how is it closed? And they do tell you at the end of the show that it was actually open, but the initial reporting that was done, the initial interview that was done by the sheriff or whoever it was that initially reported her body being found, he reported that the water tank door was closed when in actuality it was open, and it was misinformation that was being spread. The other reason why people thought she was murdered was because her body was found with no clothing, but her clothing was found at the bottom of the water tank. And this was explained away as, if she fell in, it's very plausible that she would undress herself so as to not sink. Just very all around friggin' sad. The history of the CECIL is very fascinating. That part in particular I found to be just very intriguing. And the conspiracy theory aspect, that was probably one of the more, I don't want to say ragey parts, because I didn't really rage, but that part had me scratching my head a lot, because it was just, people were willing to believe anything. They didn't want to believe that this woman at all this could have just been a tragic accident. But I just found it a little weird that people were just kind of hitting the ground running with a lot of these conspiracies. So that part just really kind of had me scratching my head, where I was like, I'm sorry, what? We're talking police cover-ups? Why would the police cover, like, what? Hotel cover-ups? Why would the hotel, like, what did they have to gain from another person being murdered in their hotel? I don't know. It just was very strange to me. But I did overall enjoy the show. It was very, very interesting. ELISA LAMM's death was a very tragic, in my opinion, accident. But it doesn't make it easier, I don't think. I think a lot of the people that invested time and energy into wanting to find the truth, I think it's because they cared. And ELISA LAMM seemed like a bright young woman who wanted to live her best life and was just struggling with how to do that. And for it to have happened in already such a dark and seedy place is what I think intrigued people the most in the first place, because you know, when your hotel is known for serial killers and drug addicts ODing in your hotel rooms, you know, a bright young woman just with an entire future ahead of her disappears, what are people instinctively going to think? Oh, somebody got her. You know, just a very sad series of events, but I very much enjoyed the show. I wasn't expecting it to take that turn into ELISA's mental health. I didn't know that aspect of the case. You know, they did say in the show that her not taking her medication could very well lead to things like paranoia and hallucinations. If you like true crime and that case intrigued you, or you remember that case, or it just seems like an interesting sounding documentary to you regarding the Cecil Hotel where so many crazy things happened, I would highly suggest you check out that documentary. I loved it. I had a good time. And I hope that by talking about it, you had a good time. Comment down below if you watched the series and enjoyed it, or let me know what you thought about it. Like this video if you want to see more stuff like this from me, and if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe, because I do this every Friday, and in between Fridays I play games, so it's a lot more. You know, I started calling this Feelin Fine Friday because I was just gonna talk about stuff out of my life, but when you watch a lot of true crime, Feelin Fine Fridays tend to become Sydney is sad every day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday, my dearie. And I hope you have a great weekend, too. Because you're beautiful and you're gorgeous and you deserve it. Don't let any of these true crime documentaries keep you down. You keep doing you. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Feelin Fine Friday. I hope you are, in fact, feeling fine. And I will see you when I upload again. Bye.